We are back, and today we're talking about the number one mistake agents are making right now, and it's easy to make this time of year. It's your good old friend, procrastination.
Not that that ever happens, right? But here's the question. What are you actually waiting for? We're going to talk about the top 10 procrastination pitfalls that are costing you money every single day, followed by, you guessed it, actionable solutions to cure your waiting habit.
You know, Julie, let's start out with something very basic with regards to, maybe I'm bringing in a little personality style conversation into all this, but they're definitely, let's just, for the sake of conversation, there's 4 distinct personality types, DISC, right? And so each of the personality types has a propensity for procrastination. That's just human nature. But there's one in particular that has more of a propensity for procrastination because they essentially will say, I'm just trying to be a perfectionist. I just want to get it right.
Sure.
And so really when we're dealing on a coaching level with people that are real chronic procrastinators, would you agree it's almost always the people that are more analytical or the C type in nature?
I would put them on the top, followed by the amiable types, because the amiables won't do things that they at least perceive will create conflict. And the more analytical types won't do things out of sheer analysis paralysis and wanting to be perfect at it before they actually allow themselves to do the task.
Yep, I agree. So if you are not knowing what we're talking about now with these personality types and you want to take your own personality test, guess what? It's waiting for you over at Premier Coaching. So just go to premiercoaching.com. And the first level of Premier Coaching you get for free in addition to a daily semi-private coaching call. And there's also a link for you to take the DISC personality test and find out for yourself what personality style you are. Now, I know personality tests are available online usually for, let's say, $150, and I've seen some for sale for like $1,000. But you can take ours for free when you simply join Premier Coaching. Just go to premiercoaching.com or text the word Premier to 47372. Costs you nothing. You have immediate access to all the first level of Premier Coaching. All right, so as we go through these points, we always make these points in such a way that you obviously can use these for your own information, but also so you can use them for training and coaching. Maybe you have a team or you have a brokerage, whatever it is. And so all of our notes are available every day for our newsletter subscribers, and that's harrisrealestatedaily.com. So harrisrealestatedaily.com is our exclusive way of saying thank you, really, to all of our podcast listeners, where we share all of our notes from that day's podcast for all of our newsletter subscribers. So just simply go to harrisrealestatedaily.com. All you got to do is drop in your email address, and then you got to pop over to your email and you got to confirm you want the newsletter, and then you'll start receiving all of our notes as well as that day's podcast and a video and some unique material too, just for the newsletter subscribers. Doesn't cost you anything. Make sure you do that right away.
All right, so before we get to our points, first ask yourself, what do you lose by procrastinating? Well, are you driven by the carrot, that's your goals, or the stick, what you stand to lose? Most agents say that they're motivated by what they want to achieve, yet it's often the threat of losing something that gets them moving. So we're going to dive into why waiting is your worst enemy.
Let's build on that one just ever so slightly, Julie. Matter of fact, I would say, you said most agents say they're motivated by the carrot, but I'll say most humans are motivated by the stick. Like but no one wants to admit that.
No, they all say it's the carrot.
They all want to say that I'm pursuing my goals. But here's an interesting fact. Statistically, if you study all kinds of there's been tons of psychological research done on this, that most people will make the most significant strides in their lives when they have no other choice. I mean, it's simply put. And when you're working towards the accomplishment of a goal, and it's something like 5% of it's less powerful to your motivation level by like 95%. So I'll give you a story that we tell sometime on this podcast. I had a coaching client a long time ago. His name was Monet Castroneves. And Monet had a real weight problem. Now, this was before I started coaching him, and he told me this story and so I'm going to tell you as he told me. So Monet was really obese, and he was obese for a long, long period of time. And he went to his doctor over decades, and his doctor always told him to lose weight. They had him all kinds of drugs. And the doctor, he had diabetes too, and the doctor told him that if you don't lose the weight, what's going to happen is eventually you're going to have bad circulation to your toes, and then your feet, then your legs, and all these all these parts basically of your body will eventually develop gangrene, and you'll then have to have those body parts cut off. Sounds horrible, but that did not discourage Monet for doctor appointment after doctor appointment from not losing weight. He knew what the doctor was going to say before he got there. He was just going to get his updated medical prescriptions and go back to his weight gaining ways. Then one day he went in for his his medical check, and the doctor said, "Well, Monet, guess what? Now I need you to speak with my nurse because we are going to schedule your appointment right now for you to have part of your, I don't remember this part, it's kind of hazy, but the gist of it was he was going to have either part or all of his, like one of his feet removed or something, because he literally had gangrene. There wasn't circulation that was getting down there to his legs and his feet.
He was basically dying, right?
He was, that's what you're doing. You're killing your body.
Yeah.
And so they're going to remove it because gangrene can actually cause your whole body to essentially, I think it's go septic, I think it is, and then you can die. So it was only after Monet was facing down, essentially that sort of medical prognosis, that he actually lost weight. Now, to Monet's credit, remember all this happened before I met him and started coaching him. Here's what he did. He lost so much weight and got in such good shape. He was on the cover of some men's fitness magazine, and he showed me a picture of the magazine. He sent me a text with the picture, and he was absolutely amazingly, in great shape. So he kept in great shape the rest of his life too. His goal when he hired me as his coach was to basically create enough money from passive income from various paid off investments, rental properties primarily, that he didn't have to work anymore. It took us like 3 years to get there, but he basically retired. I think he was like 45 or 46, maybe a little younger now I think about it. Anyway, so from my understanding, he's never gone back to work because he could just live off that cash flow. But it goes to the fact that he didn't make the decision to lose that weight until the cost, or essentially the cost, that's a great way of saying it, of not losing the weight was far greater than the cost he perceived he'd have to pay losing the weight. You guys get it?
The stick versus the carrot.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone is motivated by that. Like, Julie often says, if you want to get motivation, look at, let's say, for example, if you had to forego going on a vacation. Well, you wanted to take your family to Disney World next year, but the stars didn't align, money didn't accumulate, can't do it. Okay, but guess what? So it's okay. We had that as a goal, but it's not going to happen. Oh, well, so kind of motivational, but not really. But you're going to lose your house if you don't make the payment. You see how there's an immediate difference in motivation? You're going to lose your cell phone, which for some of you is more important than your house, if you don't make the payment. You notice how like the last thing that you wouldn't pay is your cell phone? And you guys get the point here? It's losing something that you already have is more motivational than gaining something that you want. Just accept that. And because if you think you're more motivated by the carrot than the stick, that means you're just going to be one of these people that just sets goals and never accomplishes them. If you instead start using the inner fear of losing what you already have, then all of a sudden you're going to find superpowers you never even knew you had.
Yeah, that's right. And there's a lot of evidence that in real estate. For example, how many coaching calls have you been on when somebody finally gets serious about their lead follow-up because they sold their last listing and none of their buyers are qualified? Miraculously, they find their motivation because they have fear of not making any money the next month, next quarter, et cetera.
Here's something you and I have been working on, and we don't need to talk about it now, but what's going to happen by the end of first quarter of 2025 is going to be, in our opinion, one of the greatest aha moments for the real estate industry in the history of real estate.
Yeah.
Because what we're already seeing, and I don't want to talk about it today because Julie and I are researching all of this, but we suspect that there are still to this day so like for example, the average large real estate brokerage has 60% of all the transactions, 50 to 60% are going to be buyer sides. Well, we're relatively confident that the majority of those buyer sides are not getting exclusive signed. Like 50%, 60% of those are essentially not getting exclusive signed.
That's not based on our speculation. That's based on a lot of conversations we've had.
That's right. And so what we're going to see in the industry is you're going to see a lot of buyer's agents go to a lot of closings and not get paid. And you're going to see a lot of buyer's agents finally having the epiphany that they do indeed need to learn how to basically get exclusive signed. And that's going to, in the interim, that's going to really adversely affect large brokerages and medium-sized brokerages in a whole bunch of different, very unfriendly ways. So that's going to be another example. Most people are not going, like most of you listening right now, bottom line is you definitely want to see what we're created or have already created but getting ready to present to all of you, which is called ethicalrealestateprofessional.com. Go to the website and check it out. But what this is a to Z system that's exclusive for the ethical real estate professional agents to essentially get the exclusive buyer agency contract signed. It's a complete system. You'll learn more about it when you attend the webinar. If you want to be invited, there's almost 600, did I tell you?
Nope.
Almost 600 agents on the wait list. So if you want to be on the interest list, you need to text the word buyer, B-U-I-E-R, to 47372. Mark my word, please hold me accountable to this. It's October 20th, 2024. Trust me when I tell you, in roughly 5 months, you're going to remember back and you're going to be thinking, I wish I would have become an EREP, because everything that Tim and Julie predicted was going to happen with regards to the industry and the calamity from unpaid buyer agent commissions is taking hold. And then people are going to realize it. But you watch, nobody is really going to talk about this or take any action other than what Julie and I are doing until essentially the rubber meets the road, and all of a sudden the revenue from all these real estate brokerages start to plummet. That is what's going to happen. But that's natural, normal behavior.
Yeah, well, that's a great example of why you shouldn't procrastinate. There you are. Don't wait until everything comes in with the drama. All right, so we're going to go through these relatively quickly because you are familiar with many of these as well as the cure. So first, here's one that I think that we have debunked over many podcasts. But number one, are you waiting for the market to crash? Or are you believing people that are putting that in your ear? You're holding back, convinced the market's going to crash and create better opportunities. You tell yourself nobody's buying due to higher rates and sellers are stuck with their low interest rate mortgages. That's called confirmation bias. If you want things to get easier because your perception is that when the market crashes, it'll be easier for you, and then you look at higher rates and somebody says to you, I'm going to wait for rates to come down. And so you end up doing nothing, procrastinating. However, meanwhile, while you were at the procrastination mill, 4 million plus transactions have happened over the past 12 plus months while you were waiting. Opportunity doesn't wait. Why should you? That means there's 8 million sides.
Well, hypothetical. There's 8 million sides, but not necessarily if we're
forecasting forward, there could be fewer. Okay, so
Yes.
their side will be there, but the commission might not
Right.
be. All right, number two, waiting for the perfect MLS listings. Nearly all of you are guilty of this. You're waiting for the perfect listing to pop into your MLS feed to finally get your buyers under contract. You're stuck relying just on your MLS drip instead of exploring alternative avenues, which, by the way, we've done countless podcasts about using things other than or in addition to your MLS. Remember, too, that 30% of last month's closings were from new construction. How good are you at new construction? Are you leveraging every possible inventory source, or are you just waiting on that MLS drip?
By the way, for EREP, Exclusive Buyer Agency, you're going to have a 19-point plan on finding a buyer a house. So when you're presenting your value to a buyer and you're asking for the exclusive to sign, you're also going to be showing them your 19-point exclusive EREP plan to essentially find them a house that goes way beyond just searching the MLS. And you better be thinking in terms of, how am I going to sell the prospective buyer on working exclusively with me? That is the new reality that all of us are in. The same, a sales skills issue that listing agents have had trying to show their value. Now it's basically been brought home because these commission sharing settlements to buyer agency. So if you think you can just basically enter into next year with working with centers of influence and past clients, you've been friends and family with them, they might still want to work with you, but when you are required to get an exclusive contract signed, and when they essentially are presented with the ramifications of signing this, be it paying all of your commission and you not knowing how to explain to them what this means, all the things that are necessary for, the things. They're going to be looking at this as, okay, I can work with Bob. I love Bob. I've known Bob forever. I went to high school with Bob, okay? But the reality of it is I want to buy this $1 million house, and I don't want to have to pay Bob $30,000 or whatever the commission is. You guys getting our point? So unless you as a buyer's agent or you as a broker with agents that work with buyers, which is 50% of all your transactions are buyer sides, or you're a team with a bunch of buyer's agents, unless you really get your act together immediately, urgently, and teach your buyer agents how to actually sell to buyers as to why they should work with them exclusively, as listing agents have had to do for eons, 100 plus years, you're going to be out of business. I don't even see how there's any gray area on all this. So remember, text the word buyer, BUYER, to 47372. Point number 3, waiting for your center of influence.
That's right. Well, most of you have been lucky in the past, expecting deals to materialize from your center of influence magically. And maybe they have. But in this market, hoping for something to land in your lap just won't cut it. So your reality check is this. Do you know which contacts, people in your database, those are your center of influence, who actually needs to move in the next 90 days? Have you informed your database about the value of their home in today's market? Who's being relocated with their company? Who has kids that are first-time buyers? Who needs to sell and move into assisted care? Who's having another baby and needs more bedrooms? Who has kids ready for kindergarten and wants a better school district? You won't know if you're procrastinating these conversations. Stop waiting for them to just pop up in your voicemail, email, and text.
So those of you with CRMs, whether they're very elegantly organized or whether they're just basically a bunch of information on a yellow tablet of paper, Here's your homework. You got to do this immediately, urgently. Call every single one of them. Wish them happy holidays. Offer, use our scripts that are in Premier Coaching. Offer them a quick snapshot of their home's value. They're all going to want to talk with you because virtually everyone you're talking to is going to essentially be very much in the equity. So the moral of the story is do not wait on your fancy CRM drip system to basically do all the heavy lifting for you. So many of you are so seduced by the idea that you can log into your CRM, you can send 5,000 emails. Oh, look at this one. They opened the list. They opened it. They looked at the videos. They read, oh, look, this one watched my 10-minute video for 8 minutes. All these things. That's all fun and sort of, business theater. That's not the real work of real estate. The real work of real estate is picking up the phone and calling all of them, not just the ones that are opening up your propaganda. Do not avoid the phone. If you do, you're going to be avoiding future transactions. Point number 4 is waiting for your social medias to videos. We should even almost said, Julie, marketing. Waiting for your social media videos and any marketing to bring in listings or bring in buyers.
That's right. Are you procrastinating for your TikToks or your YouTube videos or your other marketing to go viral and get you that coveted listing without you doing the follow-up, without you engaging? Well, your reality check is that content might be great and, as Tim said, fun to make and fun to see your views, but when was the last time one of your videos turned into a closed deal? Consistent follow-up is what seals the deal, not just views and likes and shares.
Your definition of a lead, dear listener, most of you, is just a name, an email address, a phone number. Our definition of a lead, and you should actually consider this for yourself, is somebody that's actually been fully pre-qualified, where you know their motivation, you know their time frame, you know all the things that are a part of the pre-qualification script. That's true with both buyers and with sellers. That's a lead. Otherwise, it's just a name on a piece of paper.
It's a contact, barely.
It's a contact, barely, exactly. Do not count lead, like all these people that are selling you guys marketing. Oh, we're going to sell you 25 leads per month. Okay, that's a name, that's a phone number, that's somebody that filled out some web form probably, and that same lead, air quoting, is being sold to 30 different people, okay? You guys know all this is true. Those are garbage. You need to really recalibrate your thinking with regards to what a lead is and raise the bar. Yes, you'll have fewer leads, but the leads you have will actually result in transactions. Stop wasting time with just essentially contacts. Go for leads. You have to have, that's the reason you have to learn to pick up the phone and have real sales skills and do the real work of real estate, because that's where you're actually going to pre-qualify them and find out their motivation, and you're going to reel them in, and they're going to see the importance of working exclusively with you. Julie, point number 5, waiting on other people.
Yes, you're constantly waiting in this business, right? For callbacks from leads, from the other agent, the home inspector, the mortgage broker, the appraiser, all of the waiting. But the reality check is you've got to proactively follow up and create momentum in your deals before they die. So don't sit back. You've got to make things happen. Whenever I'm thinking about or coaching that point, I remember back to one of our first really big deals with Rich and Joan. Do you remember them in New Albany?
Of course.
And that was a stressful deal for me because it was a combination of...
we were double-ending a custom build that took 18 months to build, yeah. And the cumulative sales volume was about $3 million.
Yes.
And we had a full 6% commission on that.
Yeah, it was a pretty yummy deal.
Yeah.
But it was complicated. They were... I felt like they were challenging personalities at times because we had so many things to deal with.
Okay, so they're not listening, so we can talk about them. These guys were high-level scientists, PhD types, that worked at Battelle Memorial Institute. So they're not just a little bit smart. I mean, they're way smart and super kind and super sweet. But they were department heads at Battelle Memorial Institute.
Yeah, and so they had, real jobs and things that they were dealing with. And I remember being stressed out in that deal because, we had a lot riding on it, but also it was very complicated and detailed. We were working with new construction. They were relo. And I will never forget, when we finally made it to the finish line, Rich came over and put his arm around me as we did the walkthrough, and he said, I really appreciate that you are on top of all of the little details in our deal, and I know that we couldn't have closed without you. Whenever I think about that point about waiting and being frustrated, it's your job to lead the transaction.
Now, fortunately, there are a lot of really cool AI transaction management apps or virtual assistants or agents that are coming around, but it's never going to replace the importance of making the perfect or the regular contact, especially with your pendings, because that's where the rubber meets the road. If you disappear in their lives and delegate them, While they're in contract, after you've worked with them for a long period of time, do not expect any referrals, because usually when they're in contract is when they're experiencing the most stress.
For sure.
And most of you let it go after the inspections are over, and you just basically let a minion of yours, virtual or otherwise, handle the transaction from there. That is a huge mistake. Now, at the very least, you need to be calling them once a week, open up the CRM, see where the transaction is in process, let them know you're paying attention. And then, when the call goes really well, which hopefully all of them will, say, oh, by the way, Bob, who do you know is thinking about buying or selling that I should be helping in this market? Point number 6, waiting for your scripts to be perfect.
You tell yourself you need a few more role play sessions before you call those leads. But the reality check is this: perfection is an illusion. Pick up the phone and start practicing on real prospects with real needs. Improvement comes from action.
Well, that's a Sheryl Sandberg quote. She goes, what is it?
Done is better than perfect.
Yeah, done's better than perfect. And that's really true. But when it comes to scripts and whatnot, is to Julie's point, the funny part of not being perfect on your scripts is when you're calling, say, for example, an expired listing, they don't know that you're not perfect on your scripts, so you don't have to worry about it. You're not you're not trying to do some sort of superstar performance and trying to get some big Emmy nomination or whatever you get, Right. So the moral of the story is the best people to practice on are not role playing with other agents, but it's actual buyers and sellers, because you're going to get more honest feedback faster and you're going to learn quicker. And the best time to actually start those, essentially role plays with live actual sellers is right away. Do it even when you're terrible, because you'll get unterrible quick. That is the honest to God truth. It is what your grandma would have told you, what she would have suggested you do. It's traditional advice. It's called throwing yourself in the deep end. Point number 7, waiting until after vacation or after an election or after anything.
After the holidays, after the frost melts, after the
flowers pigs fly. Exactly.
When pigs fly. Okay. So, you've got a vacation in 2 weeks, so why bother initiating anything new now? I mean, how many times have we heard that in coaching? You wouldn't want a deal to come together while you're away, would you? Well, deals don't care about your vacation schedule. Get the ball rolling and build momentum before you take off. You can deal with that.
Now, this next point is really hilarious because actually, this big why thing it's untrendy. Mm-hmm. So those of you who are just getting into real estate, it's probably a 30% of you listening. We usually have 30% new agents. So there's this fad, I don't know what the hell you want to call it, comes and goes, where it's a part of the whole self-improvement genre. Yeah. It's finding your big why. Like, you're never going to do anything in life unless you know what your big why is. And I always have found that very disassociative, to be honest with you, because most people are surrounded by big whys. Their kids are hungry. Their their payments need to be made. And the whole concept that you need to discover some big, huge spiritual why when you're surrounded with bills and responsibilities seems, honest to God, it does screw up a lot of people's mindset, because they use their lack of a big why as the reason why they haven't succeeded. You may have heard people say this. You may have said it. Real estate must not be my big why. I'm not successful because I haven't discovered my big why.
I don't have passion for it.
That's ridiculous, you guys. Come on, seriously.
Self-indulgent.
It is self-indulgent, honestly.
Well, it is. And yes, we could go on. All right.
Well, it's luxury thinking is really what it is.
Sure.
Look, if you become really, really successful, really, really rich, if you want to basically create these real fancy ways of procrastinating by saying, I just haven't found my big why, go for it. But 99.9% of you for your entire lives are going to have just enough financial runway to keep you out of the weeds. And now some of you will break free of that, but the reality of it is you're always going to have things you have to pay for. So you should not be wasting any time trying to discover anything more meaningful than meeting your obligations. And then also, obviously, we want you to have dreams and goals and all the rest of it. But remember, don't be thinking you need to come up with this is the fallacy of the big why, some big, huge, overarching, incredible mission statement. That's where a lot of agents, a lot of humans get off track. I hopefully made that clear. Point number 9, waiting for mortgage rates to drop.
Oh, yes, the conversation du jour. You're convinced that buyers are waiting for lower rates before they make a move, so you're procrastinating too. But here's a reality check. Did you know that every single month this year, between 25 and 30% of transactions are closing with all cash? Lenders are also offering incentives like free refis, so you can encourage your clients to date the rate, marry the home, but also don't close your eyes to the fact that in several months this year, I think it's been over 30% has been all cash, and that's nationwide. That's the average. In some markets as well, more than that. I know a lot of my coaching clients, my higher-end luxury agents, almost everything they do is all cash.
Well, the conversation goes like this. Mr. Seller, Mr. Buyer, seller that has to buy, right? So and you got to always ask questions. By the way, the essence of everything we teach you guys when it comes to sales skills is asking questions. We don't have any heavy-handed anything. It's all basically question-based. This designs the buyer, the seller, a series of questions that is designed to get the seller or the buyer to the point where where you're helping them make a decision. That's all it is. That's what scripts are. All right. So when you run across a buyer, that's basically worrying about rates to drop, you ask them these series of questions. And for the most part, in the country, we're definitely seeing more inventory. But so, Mr. Buyer, let me ask you a question. So what would be your ideal interest rate? They're almost always going to say like 5.5%. And I'm going to take a side note here. 20%, I think it was, of all mortgages in the United States are assumable.
Yep.
We talked about this in the podcast. We're going to educate the heck out of you guys, an ethical real estate professional, about this. So it's very likely in your marketplace that you're working with a lot of buyers that could assume the existing mortgage on the house, the house that's for sale, which means they just cash the seller out of their equity, and they can assume that seller's usually like 2.75% or 3% mortgage rate for the term of the mortgage. So if the seller's been there for 5 years, the buyer's going to cash them out, write them a check for their closing, and then they're going to essentially pick up where that seller left off in terms of their mortgage. It takes a little bit longer to close assumable mortgages, but if you want to talk about a great opportunity for you as an agent, you got to learn how to find those assumable mortgages in your marketplace. We're going to teach you how to do that with Ethical Real Estate Professional and market directly to those people. And if one of those happens to be an expired listing or any kind of listing, and you know that they're an assumable mortgage,
that's the ticket to selling it.
Imagine the power you're going to have when you explain to the seller that their mortgage is assumable. Imagine the power you're going to have when you let prospective buyers know what I just told you is true about that particular house. Incredible power. That's the power of knowledge. Make sure you text the word buyer, BUYER, to 47372. Now back to the script. So Mr. Buyer, I have a question for you. So what's your magic number in terms of rates? They're always going to say something in the 5. Okay, so 5.5%. So I've been hearing a lot of folks say the similar things. So let me ask you, Mr. Buyer, when the rates do drop to 5.5%, which they're projected to do you think there'll be more buyers in the market or fewer buyers? Like, will there be more activity or less activity because the payments are lower, because the rates are lower? And all the buyers are going to say, well, obviously there'll be more. All right, great. I appreciate that. So let me ask you, what do you think that will do to the price of homes? What is that actually going to do to the value of homes? So let's say 6 months from now, rates are at 5.5%. Do you think there are more buyers looking for homes or fewer buyers? There's going to be fewer. So is that going to drive prices up or is it going to drive prices down? And obviously the answer is going to drive prices up. So yes, Mr. Buyer, you might secure a 5.5% 30-year fixed rate mortgage, but you're going to be doing it at a higher price point, which means your payment's probably going to be the same, if not more, than if you buy now. Versus if you buy now at today's price, 6 months from now when the house is more expensive, but the rates are lower, just refinance.
Yes, or walk into an assumable, or buy new construction at a lower rate. Or here's another idea. Listen to our podcast from last week about 3 other ways to lower your rates.
Point number 10, that's right. Waiting for your listings to sell themselves.
This is a big problem right now. I read an article that about 50% of the country is either definitely a buyer's market or should be in the next month or two, which means that the days on the market is lengthening. Some of you listening are sitting on your own listings that are about to expire, procrastinating, waiting for your listings to sell themselves like they used to during the pandemic where you had 47 offers in 22 seconds.
Now, I'm going to give you the flip side of this. I am at my heart a listing agent. And when I hear Julie's point, waiting for your listings to sell themselves, I have to tell you where my mind immediately went. If I were still a listing agent, I would love the fact that so many agents are being so passive about getting their listings sold.
Expired, right?
It's going to, exactly. The expired train is filling on up.
Yes, major opportunity. But if you are somebody that has listings in there you haven't sold, one of the things would be the previous point. Check all of your listings that are unsold, whether they're assumable or not. That could sell them this weekend.
Yeah,
right?
That's a really good point.
I mean, seriously.
You know, that's a good idea. We should update the How to Sell the Unsellable Listing podcast
Assumable.
And have that be number 1.
Yep.
All right, so Julie, point number 10 with waiting for your listings to sell themselves. Go ahead.
All right, if your listing isn't moving, change your approach. We have done podcasts. Tim just mentioned we're going to amend one of them. What 3 or 4 things can you do differently today to create urgency and avoid an expired listing? We talked about find out if it's an assumable and make sure that you mention that in the MLS and all of your advertising. Have you done open houses? I see agents online all the time saying, I don't like doing open houses. It's because you don't know how to do them and you're not following a system. That's why you need Premier Coaching.
All right, so here's the bottom line. You guys have to sign up to get on the interest list for the ethical real estate professional designation. Go to the website, look to see what Julie and I have been working on. It's been more work for us, not just to create the website, but for us to create the actual content that you're not going to be able to see just going to the website. That's going to be something we're going to roll out when we actually open this designation. It's really going to be a very high-end exclusive designation. Ethical real estate professional. It's our aim to make this the preeminent, highest, most desirable real estate designation that there ever was. And you see the website. Let me know what you think, how you think we did on the design of it. That was a lot of work. Had a great team helping us, so I'm really thankful for that. But really, what the bottom line is you right now, dear listener, whether you're an individual agent or a mid-sized broker or a large broker, you do not have a solution to the problem about getting exclusive sign. You don't have a plan for that. You don't have a plan if you're a medium-sized brokerage when your agents refuse to get. Here's what's also going to happen. Just advanced information here. If you are one of the largest brokers in the country that had to sign and unfortunately pay as part of this settlement, and your volume, I think it was over last year, the previous years was over $2 billion, right? That seems like a lot, but there's individual agents that Julie and I have coached that have done that. Teams, really. All right, so that aside, this is a brokerage. It's part of the agreement. From what we're hearing, and we've heard this several times, as part of the settlement was the plaintiff's attorneys are going to have access to the closing information from the brokerages that participated in the settlements. And if the plaintiff's attorneys see any closed transactions where a buyer agent commission was paid and there was no exclusive contract in the file, that is going to be immediately a grounds for essentially that brokerage to be sued. Not the agent, the brokerage, because the brokerage is the one that signed the agreement. So if the brokerage signed the agreement, if the plaintiff's attorneys audit the books and they see that there was unsigned buyer agency signs, you are going to see a tsunami of relitigation of all of these from all these guys that signed these settlement agreements. That is going to happen, I guarantee it. 100%, assume what I'm saying is 100% true. But here's where it's interesting. And by interesting, I mean really scary. So what these brokerages are going to do, knowing that what I just said is true, the smart ones, they're going to see these. So let's say, for example, an agent in a brokerage sold a house to a buyer. The closing happened. And let's say the other side of it, the listing agent, even the escrow title company wasn't really paying attention, but there was no exclusive sign. There was no concession in the contract. They were still operating as if it was, 5 months ago. So the commission is paid. The commission is then wired over to the buyer's agent's brokerage. And if the brokerage sees, and they're party to the settlement, if that brokerage sees that there was no exclusive in the file and there's no concession in the contract, that buyer agent commission was paid wrongfully in violation of the settlement agreement. And what those brokers are going to do, the ones that like getting sued are going to pay it out anyway, and the ones that want to avoid getting sued are going to send that money back to escrow to title. That is what's going to happen. So you're going to see a tsunami of buyer's agents, a tsunami of brokerages and teams that are resisting and procrastinating, to Julie's topic today, actually learning how to become exclusive buyer's agents, and they're going to pay the price dearly, not just in the terms of lost transactions, but in terms of agents quitting, in the terms of all the horrible things. That is unfortunately what's most likely going to happen in first quarter into second quarter of 2025, because the industry has not yet woken up to the realities of the commission sharing lawsuit. And I can pontificate about this forever, but the moral of the story, you must text the word buyer to 47372 and get on the interest list for the ethical real estate professional exclusive buyer agent designation. It is incredibly important. Just get your name on the wait list. We'll invite you to the launch event. Participate if you want to. If you don't, that's fine as well. Learn something during the launch event. It's going to be a webinar. Julie and I are putting it together now. But that is your homework from today's show. Text the word buyer to BUYER.
Yeah, you know what I think about, Tim? Remember how we always promised these guys if anything was going to hit the fan in the market because they freak out about another housing crash or something like that we would tell them, if we see a tsunami of foreclosures coming or the forbearance crisis or that. And so this is, I just want to be very clear.
We were talking about short sales in early of 2006, late 2005 into 2006. our coaching clients started having upside down sellers in Vegas and in Florida.
Yep.
And you and I knew how to do short sales.
And in Limit Empire and in California.
That's right.
We saw it call after call. We started to see a trend very early on.
And some parts of San Diego.
Yes.
And so we started teaching those agents how to do short sales. And many of them kicked such ass because they're the only agents in their marketplace that knew how to do short sales. So when Julie says we're going to warn you about a zombie apocalypse that's on the horizon, we are freaking warning you now. Pay attention. I'm sorry if this seems overly dramatic, and some of you might be just discounting it and being skeptical. Why? Why are you thinking that way? I'm just asking you to get your name on a list so you can attend a webinar and learn more about what we've discovered. Do that. Text the word buyer to BUYER. Julie said it. I'm saying it. This is something that's really urgent that you do. Take it seriously. Frankly, I've been having a hard time sleeping for the last 5 days since I put all these pieces together.
I know. Me too. I mean, here's the thing. If it's giving us this kind of concern, and we've been this seriously proactive because we have worked on this nonstop for months now.
Because I've done the math.
You've done the math. Don't let us be more proactive than you are. We're basically doing it for you. Don't keep your head in the sand. That's why we did this podcast today about procrastination.
Well,
Don't find out the hard way.
If they're still listening, they're nerds like we are, so let's give them some math.
Sure.
If you're a real estate brokerage that did, I'm going to pick an arbitrary number, $1 billion in real estate commission. Almost always, at least 50% of that commission came from buyer side transactions. The largest brokerage, the actual volume that comes from buyer sides, dollar volume, commission dollars rather, that comes from buyer sides is usually close to 60%. So it is our belief that right now, 50% at least of those essentially buyer side transactions that are closing have not been closing with exclusive buyer agency contracts signed. A lot of brokerages have been just throwing caution to the wind,
Yes.
especially the ones that were not direct party to the lawsuit, the ones that had less than $2 billion in volume. You guys get it? I'm mixing volume with closed commissions, so don't get confused or think I'm confused. All I'm trying to say is that people are going to slowly, painfully wake up. No one's paying attention right now because it's fourth quarter. They're thinking about carving pumpkins in the election and all these other things. They're going to be paying attention to first quarter.
The attorneys have said they're watching it very closely.
Well, hell yeah.
And I honestly, people will speculate all day long that, maybe they don't have a leg to stand on or we can fight it. I really don't think there's a way to fight it because it was a settlement. It was very clear.
Well, from our perspective, and this is not popular, and this is not going to make us any more popular, or less popular, But the reality of it is we've been asking agents to get exclusive signed with their buyers
since the beginning of time.
You guys
can search it in our past podcasts.
Yeah.
We've done it many, many times.
It's been part of our training since 1992.
Yes, and we did it personally because it's good business practice. The difference is that now you're required, and now this is a legal thing that you guys have to deal with, and procrastination it literally costs you thousands. On one transaction, the average commission in the country, did I say the word? Sorry. The average compensation in the country is 10 to 12 grand. How many of those mistakes are you going to suffer before you get your act in gear? We're legitimately concerned about this. I hope that, you guys take action on it.
There'll be 5,000 to 7,000 people that download this and maybe another 2,500 or 3,000 that stream it. Mm-hmm. And of that, probably 10% are going to be brokers. And of that, I bet you 1% of that 10% are actually going to take this warning seriously. They're going to continue to try to procrastinate.
Well, we're doing what we can.
We are. And remember what I told you about Monet Castroneves. So your, Come to Jesus session will happen probably about mid-year next year when you realize you should have been listening to your old friends, Tim and Julie Harris. Okay. So I don't know what else to say. We're obviously on the very pointy end of this discovery. I've been having conversations with heads of brokerages, big teams, small teams. I've been I'm trying to be very careful about not overly sounding an alarm bell. This podcast was going to be where we sort of let the, horses out of the stable. But the moral of the story is this is a very real looming problem, and nobody but Julie and I are talking about it. And what I've really been shocked by is so many people in positions of leadership don't know about it until I show them exactly what's happening. I explain to them what's happening. And I ask them to look at their own damn numbers so they can see what's happening. That's how a lot of these people are waking up to the reality. But really frankly, I don't even know what the word is there are people that know, that are in positions of power, and they're not saying anything. And they're not doing anything because they don't know what to do. That's the real heart of the issue. They know the alarm bells are going to start screaming, but they don't know where the hell the bucket is to put out the fire. You guys get it? That's unfortunately the reality of a lot of leadership in the real estate industry right now. So Julie and I are going to fill that chasm. That's the reason we create Ethical Real Estate Professional. Text the word buyer to BUYER. In the meantime, hopefully you stayed with us on this whole podcast and got something from it. I mean, our brains are so deeply rooted in this information that it honestly feels like it's back in the short sale days.
It does, but I think it's actually more intense.
It's way worse.
From our perspective, too, because we care so much about their success and because we've walked in their shoes.
Yeah.
That's different.
Well, but
in a
Julie,
sense.
back in the short sale days, I'd rather have a short sale crisis than I would this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that's easier to solve, I mean,
Well,
for most people.
And basically, short sales were, honestly, I mean, horrible for consumers, but it was really essentially a process that we taught you guys to follow to help those consumers out of their problem. And if you followed the checklist, essentially what to do, it was very easy to take listings. The people, generally speaking, weren't a pain in the butt to deal with. And you could make a lot of money essentially a lot of the agents that became
helped a lot of people.
A lot of the agents that became top listing agents in their marketplaces from learning how to do short sales are to this day still the top agents. This is totally different. This is entirely different because the large and medium-sized brokerages are the ones that are going to be absolutely blindsided by this because they're not paying attention.
Well, that's right. And it is, unlike short sale and foreclosure, this affects 100% of buyer transactions. 100%, You used to take 5 listings and 2 of them were short sales and the other 3 were okay.
You want me to tell you guys who absolutely, I don't want to say celebratory, but the people that are actually benefiting massively from all this confusion? Listing agents.
Yeah, they're eating it up.
Yeah, listing agents are absolutely eating it up. You know what they're doing? They're telling the seller to expect 6%, 3%, and then, obviously they're doing whatever the law says. And so if a buyer asks in a concession for a 3% commission, just be prepared to pay it. And it depends obviously on how the numbers sort out. You can make that decision when the time comes. But in essence, the seller's conditioned to pay 6%. They write 6% on the contract. And that's the way it works. And then the buyer agent writes the offer. There is no request for compensation.
Just an assumption.
You're mixing terms, Julie. You're saying assumption. They're going to think mortgage.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. There's buyer agents not asking for a concession. There's no exclusive buyer agency contract signed. And then what's happening is the closing rolls around and the seller's, paying commissions as normal. And guess who's keeping all of the commission? The listing agent, and the buyer agent's getting nothing. That's actually what's happening right now. So, guess what? Listing agents, you guys, congratulations. Go you for having learned how to be listing agents a long time ago. Keep that up. That's always going to be where the most leverage is in real estate. Just makes sense.
That's right. And even, there are a lot of our listeners who are serious listing agents. Many of our coaching clients lead with listings. They're like 80% listing heavy. But even you guys, when you have a seller that also has to buy, you're subject to this as well. So make sure that you're not procrastinating this.
That's right. Text the word buyer to BUYER to 47372. In the meantime, hopefully we've educated you, motivated you. Now get into action. You know what to do. Have a fantastic day.